Lesson 1. What is a fairy tale? Writers, I am so proud of the realistic fiction stories you wrote. They're just awesome. And last week, we were writing like scientists. Good job there, too. Now we have just enough time left in this school year to try one more kind of writing: fairy tales. Like all fiction, a fairy tale tells a story that the writer made up. It has all the story elements: characters, settings, problems, and solutions. But a fairy tale isn't realistic. It's not like real life. Fairy tales are fiction stories with story elements that are a little different than other kinds of fiction stories. Today, we'll look at fairy tale story elements. There are characters, the people in the story, but in a fairy tale, they're either good or evil. The good characters are called heroes and heroines. The evil characters are called villains. Sometimes there are royal characters too, like kings and queens and princesses and princes. A fairy tale has a setting. They always take place once upon a time in a land far, far away. Sometimes there's a castle or a dark forest. The setting isn't like Brooklyn, and it isn't here and now. It's a long time ago in some mysterious place. In fact, it could even be under the sea, like in The Little Mermaid. There's always a problem. The evil villain creates a problem because they're bad. And sometimes they even use magical powers. And every fairy tale has a solution. Magic can be involved in the solution too, but often the good characters solve the problem through their own talents and goodness. The solution in a fairy tale teaches us a lesson about how to be a good person too. So, what fairy tale do I remember? Oh, I know. Rumpelstiltskin is a fairy tale. Do you know that one? All right, let me see if I can retell it pretty quickly. Okay. A long time ago, in a kingdom far away, there was a teenage girl, and she was in a jam. Her father had told the king that she could make gold out of straw. And the king said, okay, do it. And he put her in a basement room with all this straw, and he said, I'll see you in the morning. And if you don't do it, I'll kill your dad for lying. And she's thinking, oh no, and she starts to cry. What am I going to do? When all of a sudden, this mysterious little man shows up, and he goes, I can help you, but you must promise to give me something in return. She says, okay, anything, anything. And he goes ahead and he turns the straw into gold. The next morning, the king is so happy, he says, do it again. Oh no. Second night, who shows up with that little man? The whole thing happens again. He says, just remember. No problem. The next morning, the king is so happy, he says, do it 3 times and I'll make you my queen. So down she goes to that basement room, but fortunately, the little man comes, solves the problem. He spins the straw into gold. The next morning, the king makes her the queen, and everything seems to be going okay. A few years go by, she has a baby, and who shows up but that little man? You remember me. I'm here to collect. What do you want? She says. Give me that baby. What? My baby? That's really distressing. He says, oh, you have to, you have to. She's like, what am I going to do? Please, please. And he's really kind of evil. And he goes, okay, I'll make a deal with you. I'll come back tomorrow. And if you can tell me what my name is, you get to keep that baby. And he goes off home. She's thinking, his name, it could be anything. There are so many names. But she's very smart and she's a nice person. So she asks one of her friends, a courtier, can you follow him and find out what his name is? So the courtier follows the little man into the forest. And he's creeping along and he sees the little man comes to a little house and he makes a fire and he's dancing around the fire and he's singing this song. My name is Rumpelstiltskin. She'll never guess my name. Tomorrow I get the baby. Ha 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 ha. And the courtier hears it. He runs back to the queen and says, I've got it, I've got it. His name is Rumpelstiltskin. And the next day when the little man came back, he thinks he's going to get that baby. But the queen looks at him and says, Is your name Peter? No, ha 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 ha. Is your name Jose? No, ha 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 ha. Is your name Rumpelstiltskin? What? And he gets so upset his hair stands straight up. He spins around and poof, disappears into thin air, never to be seen again. And that's the story. And she lives happily ever after with her baby and everything's fine. So, that's my version, my quick version of Rumpelstiltskin. But in it, you can tell it's a fairy tale because there's the good character, the girl who becomes the queen, and the evil character, Rumpelstiltskin. There's this sort of magical setting. They live in a castle and there's a dark forest with a little cottage. That's not at all like real life. And there's a very serious problem. She has to give this guy her baby because she had to spin straw into gold. Yikes! And there's a solution. And it tells us how to be in life, too. The solution is she outsmarts him. She's nice. She has a friend. Her friend helps her. She gets to keep her baby. So I could tell it's a fairy tale for all those reasons. Now I have a job for you. 1. Think of a fairy tale that you know, like maybe Cinderella or The Little Mermaid or Hansel and Gretel or something like that. Retell that story, that fairy tale, out loud. You can tell it to someone in your home. You can tell it to a stuffed animal. 3. Then get out your notebook and write down the story elements of that fairy tale. It should look like this. There's a place to write your name, the date, title. Write the title of the fairy tale that you're telling. The main characters. Who's the good character? Who's the evil character? Problem. What's the main problem? Write that down. And what is the solution? Write that down. Problem and solution are tricky because sometimes there's more than one. But think of what's the main problem, what's the main solution? Where do we learn the lesson about how to be a good person? When you're done, submit your work, this part, so your teachers can see it. All right, talk to you tomorrow.